Hello, everyone, again. I recently sent off a Frankenpen to a user, and he's having some difficulty with it. And Frankenpens, all pens, but Frankenpens in particular, are crazy little things that have quite a number of idiosyncrasies involved in them. Because I'm taking a Victorian dip pen nib and shoving it into a much later fountain pen, I am changing how it normally would have been used back in the times when the nib was made. Back in the olden days, you would dip the pen. It would be in a straight holder, and you'd dip the pen and write for a little bit, and then dip it again and write for a little bit, and depending on how big you wrote and the nib size and everything else would determine how often you had to dip it. I discovered that by putting a dip pen nib into a fountain pen body, the feed was able to give me the amount of ink I needed to be able to calligraph an envelope. Mr. and Mrs. John Smith, 125 Western Avenue, Apartment 2, Boston, Massachusetts, 02111. That was able, I could do that with one dip. If I hadn't put it in this pen, I would maybe have to dip it 3 or 4 times in order to get it done. And I don't have those hours in the day that I wanted to spend dipping. So I shoved them in here, and they work perfectly fine for me, for my purposes. 90% of the time. Now, the person that bought the pen from me is not calligraphing envelopes. He's writing an entire letter. And because the letter is something that he has not composed in his mind, he's, I'm sure, stopping and pondering and then writing again and stopping and pondering. Do I want to say this? Do I want to use this word or that word? And while he's pausing, one gets out of the rhythm and one dips it again, and hopefully will start up again, and it'll be fluid. You won't see these hesitations in the way it's written. Now maybe you will. He ends a declarative sentence with an exclamation point, ponders what the next sentence is going to be. Maybe it'll start off a little less effervescent. Maybe the sentence has no effervescence in it whatsoever. He was writing a condolence letter with the pen that he got from me, and he had some complaints about how it was working, and I said, well, that pen only writes happy things. Some pens do only write happy things. No, a pen can write any word you want it to write. There may be a better pen for writing a condolence letter than the one that he has. So, what is the difference? What is the difference between how I write an envelope and how I write a sentence? An envelope, I'm just taking dictation. I'm looking at a list that's been printed up, I copy it, and I'm done. I don't have to think. I don't have to think about Mr. and Mrs. John Smith, who live at 125 Western Avenue in Boston, Massachusetts. I just write it. There's no emotion to it. There's no hesitation. Do they live in Boston? Do I have to remember that? No, I just copy it down. I'm just copying. When I do have to write a poem, with a pen like this, it's really different than writing an envelope. First of all, when I'm writing an envelope and I screw up on the last digit of the zip code, I've wasted all of a minute of my time. When I get to the last rhyming word of a poem, I might have had 3 hours of my time already invested in this thing. And as I continue writing more and more and more and more, I'm getting more and more nervous about making a mistake, and of course I'll make one. Even before I start the first word of a big, long poem, I'm depressed and suicidal. And I think it shows in the work that I do. I've learned to do one sentence at a time. I read the sentence about 4 times over. I make sure that I don't turn a word into another word. I try to be very careful about my memorization, and I double check and I triple check as I'm writing the sentence, and I still make mistakes. But that's copying. That's still copying a script. When I'm writing words that come from my heart or my brain or somewhere in between my left lung, when I'm writing words that come from my left lung, then I've got all sorts of other stuff sticking their fingers in my pie. You know, what am I trying to say? Am I trying to be sincere? Am I trying to be accurate? What am I trying to say in this thing? And all of that is going to slow down my hand. And my hand and my pens, my Frankenpens, work best when I'm writing Mr. and Mrs. John Smith and I'm able to do this. They work less well when I'm writing a poem because I write more carefully and more slowly, and they work least well when I'm actually trying to come up with the words myself. When I'm trying to use my left lung and my heart and my brain together, usually my best results happen when I have a pen that has no flexibility whatsoever. I'll pick a 51 because I don't have to worry about any of this other stuff. I'm just concentrating on the words I'm using. So, back to the question at hand. The pen that he's using to make his letters in a sentence, in a paragraph that he's going to send to someone, and he's having problems with it. He was talking about whether it was the Frankenpen aspect of it, so he yanked the nib out, put it in a dip pen holder, and ended up feeling that he was writing more vertically than diagonally, holding the pen differently. All of these things are factors that are individual between how I hold a pen and how he holds a pen and how you hold a pen. And it's easier for me when I can see someone across the table from me holding a pen and writing, and the speed at which they write. It might help me find the right pen for them, or suggest, is it possible for you to hold the pen a little differently, I might suggest. And it may work or it may not work. But there's lots of factors that are involved in using any fountain pen for any particular purpose. But with the Frankenpen, the problems are a little more magnified and compounded, because you're using a pen that has a nib that doesn't have a breather hole in it, which is one of the reasons why I'm always dipping them. I don't actually fill them to use. I dip them. And so I've gotten used to how they work. If I were to have bought one from myself, never having used it before, and was upset that I couldn't carry it around with me during the day, I may not be happy with it. I think in this particular case, the client or the customer, the fellow pen person, is quite bright and quite creative, and his handwriting is very varied in the letter that he sent me. Sometimes he writes really, really tiny, sometimes he writes really, really big. And he knows, and I know that he knows, that one pen can't do everything. And maybe this dip pen nib is not good for writing condolence letters. Maybe it only wants to write happy things, where you're writing kind of big and you're not being, you use it for happy birthday. Here's looking at you, kid, blah, blah, blah. Rather than, I'm so sorry to hear about your loss. Grover was such a nice bird. Or whatever. Whoever died, whatever species died. So anyway, good luck to all of you. Good luck to him. Good luck to me. It's not easy. It's not easy being me. And if it's hard for me to be me, it must be impossible for you to be you, because you're a much more complicated person than I am. I'm relatively simple. Bye.